There's a moment that happens to almost all of us. You're scrolling through your phone and you see a photo of someone you went to school with, a promotion, a vacation, a new home, a growing family, and for just a second, something shifts inside you. A quiet unease settles in. You put the phone down, tell yourself you're fine, and move on with your day. But something lingers. A low-grade dissatisfaction. A vague sense that somewhere along the way, you fell behind. You don't call it comparison. You don't even fully notice it happened. But it did, and it's been happening your whole life. This is the psychology of unconscious social comparison, one of the most quietly destructive mental habits human beings engage in. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't feel like jealousy or insecurity in the moment. It disguises itself as ambition, as standards, as simply paying attention to the world around you. And because it operates mostly beneath the surface of your awareness, it shapes the way you see yourself in ways you may never directly trace back to its source. Social comparison theory was first introduced by psychologist Leon Festinger in 1954. His research suggested that human beings have a fundamental drive to evaluate their own opinions, abilities, and worth, and that in the absence of objective measures, we turn to other people as our benchmarks. This wasn't a flaw in human design, it was a survival mechanism. In early communities, understanding your position relative to others helped you navigate social hierarchies, form alliances, and assess threats. Knowing where you stood kept you safe. But what served our ancestors in small, tight-knit tribes has followed us into a world where we are now exposed to thousands of people every single day, most of whom we will never meet, and most of whose lives we only see in curated, filtered fragments. The brain didn't get the update. It still runs the same comparison software, only now it's processing an overwhelming amount of data it was never designed to handle. And so the comparisons come fast, they come constantly, and they come without your permission. What makes unconscious comparison particularly powerful is how early it begins. Long before you could articulate what comparison even meant, you were being compared. A parent, perhaps well-meaning, remarked that your cousin was already reading by age 4. A teacher pointed out that another student had finished first. A sibling seemed to receive praise more effortlessly. These moments, small and seemingly insignificant, began building a quiet, internal narrative, a belief that your worth was something that needed to be measured against someone else's performance, that you were not enough on your own terms, but only in relation to what others had achieved, earned, or become. By the time you reach adulthood, this pattern has been reinforced thousands of times, and it has become automatic. You don't decide to compare yourself, it simply happens. You walk into a meeting and instantly read the room. Who speaks with more authority, who commands more attention, who seems more certain. You attend a social gathering and notice, almost involuntarily, who appears more comfortable in their skin, whose relationship looks more effortless, whose life seems more put together. These observations feel like neutral awareness. They are not. They are comparison in motion, and they leave a residue. That residue shows up in the way you hesitate before sharing an idea because somewhere in the back of your mind you've already decided someone else would say it better. It shows up in the way you minimize your achievements. It's not that big a deal before anyone else can minimize them first. It shows up in the chronic restlessness, the sense that no matter what you accomplish, the finish line keeps moving. Because when your sense of self is tethered to a moving target, other people's lives, you can never actually arrive anywhere. You can never feel like enough, because enough is always being redefined by whoever appears to be doing better. There are two directions unconscious comparison tends to move. The first is upward comparison, measuring yourself against people who appear to have more, achieve more, or be more. This type of comparison is most common in cultures that glorify hustle, success, and visible achievement. Upward comparison can masquerade as motivation, and sometimes it briefly functions that way. But sustained upward comparison quietly corrodes self-esteem. It keeps you in a chronic state of perceived inadequacy, always arriving late to your own life because someone else seems further ahead. The second direction is downward comparison, measuring yourself against people who appear to have less, struggle more, or fall short in ways you don't. This can feel like relief or even gratitude. At least I'm not in their situation. And while context and perspective are healthy, using another person's pain as a mirror for your own adequacy is a fragile and ultimately hollow way to feel better about yourself. It doesn't build genuine confidence. It only temporarily quiets the comparison mechanism by redirecting its aim. What both forms share is this: they keep your attention anchored outside of yourself. They make your interior life, your growth, your values, your authentic experience, secondary to a constant external audit. And over time, that audit becomes the loudest voice in the room, louder than your own knowing, louder than your own joy. There's also something worth understanding about the social media dimension of this pattern. Platforms are not neutral spaces. They are architecturally designed to trigger comparison. The metrics are visible: likes, followers, engagement, turning human expression into a measurable, rankable performance. Every post is an implicit invitation to compare, and the algorithm rewards content that provokes the strongest emotional response. Envy, inadequacy, desire, these are powerful engagement drivers. You are not weak for feeling them. You are, in many ways, responding exactly as the system intended. But awareness is where change begins. Not a dramatic, effortful overhaul of your psychology, but a quiet, compassionate noticing. The next time you feel that low-grade unease after looking at someone's life, pause. Don't immediately scroll past or push the feeling down. Ask yourself, what story did I just tell myself about my own life in response to what I saw? What did I decide I was lacking? And is that actually true? Or is it a reflex, an old habit, a script that was written for me long before I was old enough to write my own? The goal is not to stop noticing other people. Connection, inspiration, even healthy aspiration. These are beautiful parts of being human. The goal is to loosen the grip that other people's lives have on your assessment of your own, to begin building what psychologists call an internal locus of evaluation. A place inside yourself from which you measure your life not against someone else's highlight reel, but against your own values, your own intentions, your own vision of a life well lived. This takes time, it takes repetition, and it takes a quality of self-compassion that can feel deeply unfamiliar if you've spent years in the habit of self-criticism. But here is what is fundamentally unchangeably true. The person you keep comparing yourself to doesn't have access to your particular combination of experiences, wounds, gifts, and quiet becoming. No one does. The life you are living, with all its incompleteness, its detours, its small and overlooked victories, is not behind anyone else's life. It is simply and entirely your own. And when you begin to live from that place, not in silent competition with the world, but in honest, curious relationship with yourself, something shifts. The restlessness softens. The finish line stops moving. And for the first time in a long time, where you are begins to feel like exactly where you're supposed to be.